If you still think Donald Trump walks into every room and owns it, watch what happens the one night someone in that room had already seen everything he didn't want shown. By midnight, his team had issued 3 statements. By 1 a.m., they had deleted 2 of them. By morning, the clip of Trump's microphone hitting Kimmel's desk had been viewed 41 million times, and none of those 41 million people had yet seen the full 60 seconds that caused it. That is where this story begins. Not with the storm-off, not with the microphone, not with the 3 statements that contradicted each other in ways that his communications staff spent the following week trying to explain. It begins with a clip, a single clip. 43 seconds of footage that Jimmy Kimmel's team had sourced, verified, and loaded onto a studio server 3 days before Trump ever walked through the door of the El Capitan Theater, and that Trump, by every available indication, had no idea existed. But to understand what made those 43 seconds so precise, so surgical, so specifically and irreversibly placed, we have to go back to the moment Trump crossed the threshold. The El Capitan's backstage corridor runs 47 feet from the green room to the stage entrance. Trump walked every inch of it, the way he walks every corridor that leads to a room where cameras are running. Shoulders back, chin forward, pace slow enough to fill the space without appearing to rush it. His suit jacket was dark, pressed, carrying the particular authority of fabric that costs more than most people's monthly rent, and knows it. He had arrived 18 minutes early, unusual, and his pre-show briefing had run only 4 minutes, which was, by the accounts of 2 production staffers who were present, also unusual. He had not asked questions. He had answered the ones put to him with short, confident finality, and then stood up and straightened his cuffs. He was ready. His senior aide had confirmed the agreed topic list twice in the 48 hours prior to the taping. Those topics were the Kennedy Center honors, the administration's economic record, and his response to Kimmel's September commentary after the ABC suspension. The clip was not on the agreed topic list. It had never been discussed. The production team had not disclosed it in any pre-show communication, not because they had hidden it deliberately, but because, under the show's standard editorial protocol, pre-interview disclosures applied to guest-submitted content only. Kimmel's team had sourced the clip independently. They owed no disclosure. This was, in the language Trump himself would use 11 minutes later on that stage, an ambush. Whether it was also something else is precisely what the next 72 hours of coverage would argue about without resolution. Trump entered the stage to applause that was louder than the warm-up act had generated. He acknowledged it with his right hand extended, palm down, the signature gesture, half wave, half benediction, that he has used since 1988 to indicate that a crowd's approval is accepted but not required. He took his seat with the ease of a man who has never once sat down in public without first deciding exactly how he would do it. He spread wide in the guest chair, taking both armrests fully, his right ankle crossing his left knee. Then he found Kimmel's eyes. The look lasted 3 seconds. It was the look Trump gives interviewers he believes he has already beaten. Flat, slightly amused, carrying the weight of a man who has survived more hostile rooms than this one, and expects to survive this one the same way. By controlling the first 5 minutes, by making the host spend energy responding rather than attacking, by arriving with so much forward momentum that the interview's center of gravity shifts before the first question is asked. He had done it to Stephanopoulos. He had done it to Wallace. He had, by his own accounting on Truth Social the previous week, dominated every interview he had ever agreed to sit for. His first line was delivered before Kimmel finished the introduction. He leaned slightly forward, just slightly, just enough to indicate that he was not waiting to be announced, but arriving of his own accord, and said, with a smile that had the warmth of a security camera, that it was nice to be back on a show that still needed him to get ratings. He said the word still with a particular emphasis. Not cruel, not overt, but landing exactly where it was aimed, in the specific place where Kimmel's September suspension and the months of back and forth with the White House had left a bruise. The audience laughed, not all of it, not wildly, but enough. Trump's shoulders settled, his jaw unclenched by 1 degree. He believed he was winning. Kimmel smiled. He thanked Trump for coming. He said, in a register that was light but not warm, that he was glad the president had taken the time. Then he said he had something he wanted to show the audience before they got to the agreed topics, something he thought was relevant context. He said the word context the way a person says a word they have been saving. Trump's right hand, which had been loose on the armrest, closed. The screen behind the desk, a 12-foot LED panel that had been running a static show graphic since the taping began, Changed. 43 seconds. A recording. Not new. The date stamp in the lower right corner showed it was 18 months old, sourced from a local affiliate's raw feed that had never been broadcast in full. In it, Trump was speaking at a private event. Not a rally, not a press conference. A closed-circuit venue with perhaps 200 people. No national media. No cameras from his own team. He was relaxed. Completely, visibly, specifically relaxed in the way a person is relaxed when they believe they are among people who will never repeat what they hear. He was talking about Jimmy Kimmel, specifically, by name. Not the way he talks about Kimmel in public, with contempt dressed as amusement, but with a different quality, something beneath the contempt, something that sat closer to the root of the thing. He was describing what Kimmel had said about him during the ABC suspension months. He was describing what it had cost. And he was using language that his team had spent the previous 4 months assuring everyone he had never used. The audience absorbed the clip in absolute silence. Trump's breathing changed. His chest, which had been rising in the slow, controlled rhythm of a man at rest, accelerated, visibly, measurably, in a way that the 3 cameras trained on him from separate angles all caught simultaneously. His posture shifted, not collapsing, not theatrical, but pulling fractionally backward, the way a structure shifts when it detects load it wasn't built for. His eyes went to the screen, then to Kimmel, then to the screen again, his jaw locked, side to side, once. Then the clip ended. Kimmel let the silence sit. 4 full seconds. He had his hands flat on the desk in front of him, and he was not looking at Trump. He was looking at his notes, unhurried, as if the 4 seconds of silence were simply part of the evening's schedule, and he was confirming what came next. Then he looked up. His voice dropped 1 register. He said, "Let's do an inventory of what we know." He said the word inventory, the way a person names the thing they've been building toward. He described the clip. Date, venue, source, verification chain. He named the affiliate. He named the timestamp. He named the specific phrase Trump had used. He did not editorialize. He simply described what had been on the screen in precise sequence, the way a person accounts for items they have already counted and intend to count again. Trump said it was taken out of context. Kimmel asked what the context was. Trump said the event had been private. Kimmel said, yes, and then he said nothing. He let the statement sit beside the response and let the audience do the arithmetic. A man in the 4th row had both hands pressed flat on his knees. A woman 2 seats from the aisle was holding her program rolled into a tight cylinder, both hands wrapped around it. The band hadn't moved. The keyboard player had his hands in his lap. The bass player was looking at a fixed point on the back wall with the expression of someone performing stillness very deliberately. Then Kimmel opened the folder. It was not the clip that had been on the screen. It was supplementary documentation. A record of correspondence between Trump's legal team and the affiliate that had held the raw footage. A cease and desist letter dated 6 weeks after the event, requesting the footage's destruction and citing proprietary event confidentiality. The letter had not been complied with. The footage had been retained under standard archive protocol. It now existed in Kimmel's folder, printed on 2 pages, with the relevant passages underlined in pen. Kimmel placed it on the desk. He did not slide it toward Trump. He simply placed it the way the clip had played. Without announcement, without performance, as an item in a sequence that had been organized in advance and was proceeding exactly according to plan. Trump's voice rose. He said this was a political hit job. He said he had come in good faith and been ambushed. He said the word ambush twice, the second time louder, the way a word gets louder when the person using it realizes it is not having the effect they intended. His left hand came up and wiped once across his mouth. His breathing was audible now. Not ragged, but present, a sound the microphone captured, and the studio monitors amplified into the 2nd row. His eyes were moving. Kimmel to the folder, to the audience, to the camera, to Kimmel, cycling through the room's surfaces without settling on any of them. Kimmel watched him, still. His hands had returned to their flat position on the desk. He said, "I asked you to take an inventory. You said you would." Then he waited. Trump's verbal collapse arrived in its recognizable sequence. The accusation, "You planned this." The procedural complaint, "This violates everything we agreed to." The bravado, "I've survived worse than this, Jimmy. I've survived things that would end careers you haven't even started." The voice cracking at the peak of the last sentence, the pitch rising by a quarter step on the word careers, the microphone picking up the thin edge of something that was not quite anger anymore. Then the silence. Then the microphone. He didn't throw it. He placed it, hard, with the flat of his palm, in the way a man places something when he has decided the conversation is over and wants the placement to say so. The wire snapped. The thud resonated through the studio monitors for 2 full seconds. He stood, he turned, he walked. The cameras stayed on Kimmel. Kimmel looked at the folder, then at the empty chair, then at the audience. He said, quietly, without inflection, into a room that had stopped using air, "The inventory is complete, and every item points in one direction." He did not say another word for 11 seconds. He didn't need to. The clip was online before Trump reached the parking structure, not the storm-off. That came second. First came the 43-second original clip, re-uploaded from 3 separate sources within 4 minutes of the microphone hitting the desk. Then the storm-off. Then the folder documentation, photographed by a journalist in the press section, who had been seated close enough to read the underlined passages. By 11 p.m., all 3 pieces were moving independently, each one seeding a different conversation, each one pointing back to the same center. Networks cut programming. One anchor played the 43-second clip twice in the same segment, once with audio, once without, and then turned to the camera and said nothing for a full 6 seconds. Her producer later said the 6 seconds were not planned. She said it was the most honest thing she'd done in 3 years of broadcast. Trump's Truth Social posts arrived in 4 waves. The first was measured, the second was longer and less measured. The third used capital letters in sentences where they had no grammatical function. The fourth, posted at 2:09 a.m., was a single run-on sentence that 3 major outlets ran in full without editing, because editing it would have obscured the thing that made it significant. It confirmed, in its own structure, that the 43 seconds had reached something real. The cease and desist letter was cross-referenced against public court filings by morning. Legal forms traced the correspondence thread backward through 18 months of affiliate communications. They found 3 prior contact attempts from Trump's legal team regarding the same footage. Each one on record. Each one declined. Each one sitting now in threads that had been viewed 2 million times before noon. The unanswered question: what specifically in those 43 seconds Trump's team had been trying to suppress for 18 months, ran on every platform for weeks. The official explanation never fully arrived. The legal argument was raised and then quietly dropped. The footage remained accessible. The inventory, as Kimmel had said, was complete. What the inventory showed was not going anywhere. Power that cannot survive being seen is not power. It is the appearance of power, maintained by controlling what the room has access to, dependent on the footage staying buried, on the letter being complied with, on the clip never finding the right desk in the right room at the right moment. Jimmy Kimmel had the right desk. He had done the inventory in advance, and when the moment came, he simply opened the folder. After everything you just saw, ask yourself one thing: what else has been hiding behind the noise? Subscribe and turn on notifications, because this story isn't over, it's just getting started.